8 decades ago today, more than 150,000 soldiers, as well as thousands of planes and ships, stormed those beaches of Normandy in the largest amphibious assault in history. Right now, President Biden is in France observing the anniversary amid the modern fight for freedom in Europe. Commemorations also underway today in Washington, D.C., where we find NewsNation's Robert Sherman live outside the World War II Memorial with the very latest from there. An important day to remember, to pause and take light of the sacrifices made that day. Robert, what's happening in our nation's capital to commemorate this day?
Hey, you think just for a moment here, Marni, about the grand scheme of a war with so many monumental battles. Midway, Iwo Jima, Operation Market Garden, Dresden, the Battle of the Bulge, D-Day, as you said, the one that really turned the tide in the European theater. But that turning point did not come without cost. And you see that illustrated here today in Washington, just off of the main concourse here at the World War II Memorial that is here at Washington. They're actually listing off the names of every single American who fell during D-Day. They started reading off those names at 5 o'clock in the morning. They still have many hours to go. That just puts into perspective the loss of life on that one particular day 80 years ago. And that was the point that the president underscored during his speech, that those sacrifices made by all those Americans and British and Canadians and allied forces as well was not made in vain. It was made to combat tyranny in order to fight for freedom. But the president drew parallels to the current situation that you currently have in the globe, pointedly talking about the war in Ukraine and framing that as a situation in which Ukrainians are fighting tyranny and fighting for their own freedom. And he emphasized that just like it was 80 years ago, he believes now is not a moment in which the United States can remain on the sidelines. This is what he said just moments ago.
Here in Europe, we see one stark example. Ukraine has been invaded by a tyrant bent on domination. Ukrainians are fighting with extraordinary courage, suffering great losses, but never backing down.
President also drawing parallels on the idea of isolationism, saying that this is a moment in history in which the United States cannot conduct an isolationist kind of foreign policy. As it so happens, World War II was the war that effectively ended that kind of foreign policy over 80 years ago, insisting that we learn from the lessons of those many years ago. But that was a major point of emphasis that you saw in his speech here today, trying to draw parallels between what happened in World War II and the current geopolitical climate in Europe.
Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNationNow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.